Hey, it's Shiro, Sadistic In-Game. This is the first video guide on post-rework Kunoichi Succession. This video is going to primarily focus on the setup for this class so that you can get your UI, your hotkey skills, skill add-ons, and whatever other skills you need to unlock so that you can go ahead and actually start playing the class. Started for the top, you can see that on my skill UIs that I'm tracking here, we have a macabre, ankle cutter, crescent slash. Skills are pretty much bread and butter movement, and they're skills that, specifically ankle cutter and crescent slash punish you if they're, if you try to use them off cooldown, so I try to keep them at the top to monitor that. Going down the list, we have smoke screen, sinew cut, and tendon cutter. Skills that are, important protections, important engages, really how you're going to get a lot of your CCs is through those skills. Then I have some utility skills in the concealment, block, jump, and grab. Following up with that, I have some more. You can see that this is kind of divided into two sections, like a top section and a bottom section. This bottom section primarily focuses on more damage. So we have shackles, moonlight, and stomp. Going down further, we got shackle target, flash slash, and shadow clone. And then lastly, we have Heart Snatch, Wheel of Wrath, and Shadow Explosion. Most of the time, by the way that I have these boxes divided, I'm kind of have my eyes at the top of the box when I'm moving around trying to stay protected, and then as we get into, you catch a CC or somebody's already CC'd, you can start to drift your eyes down and hit them with some of the filler damage skills and other damage skills. Next, these skills, target chase has a 100% uptime, so you don't really need to monitor that. You should just always be pressing your target chase every opportunity you get. Next, your E-buff, commence, emergency escape, BSR. You don't really need to track these things that closely, so I have them down here. I'll teach you what you actually need to hotkey. You need to hotkey smoke screen. Concealment is unnecessary. You don't actually need to hotkey concealment, but I find it to be very useful to not have to burn your smoke to go in concealment. As you can see, if you press smoke and follow it with a space input, you'll go invisible, which is automatically proccing concealment. But I find it's more useful to just use concealment when I want to go invisible and use smoke screen when I want to stay protected. Next skills you need to hotkey are going to be shackles and moonlight. These skills are pretty bad in PvP outside of 1v1s. They are a protected, stun, and stiffen respectively, or unprotected rather. But they're pretty slow, pretty mopey. They just aren't very good or worth keeping track of outside of like PvE. And there's some niche situations in PvP that you might use them. Like if every one of your damage skills is on cooldown and somebody has like 1 HP, you might use one of those skills, but even that's pretty unlikely. So the next hotkey is going to be ankle splitter or shackle target, depending on whether you're in PvP or PvE spec. That would be your third tier rebomb. I actually use the G key here, which is worth noting. I've rebinded it, which would normally pull up your guild menu. Pulling up your menu will just flat out get you killed if you fat finger F. So some skills that I have a preference for hotkeying, but you don't need to, would be your 2 rebombs. Technically, they're a little faster if you use them off their actual inputs, and it's definitely better to use them off their inputs, but I keep track of them at least that much, at least have them on your bar to watch them. Whether you want to hotkey them or not, it's up to you. The other 2 would be Tendon Cutter and Shadow Clone, which both of these received key inputs with the reworks, and neither of them need to be hotkeyed anymore. I still do it just because of muscle memory, and it's a little bit easier for me as I'm adjusting to the rework, and as time goes on, I might use the hotkeys less and less, and eventually not at all. They're still going to remain there as I need to keep track of the skills. Next, we can talk about rebomb choice. So going over to the skill enhancement window in your skill tree, you can see that I've chosen sinew cut here for the level 56 rebomb. It's really powerful. It leaves behind an AoE stiffen. Very hard for people to see it if they don't have skill effects turned on, so it's basically a free CC, which is kind of cheesy, but it is what it is. It's just a very powerful skill all around that puts you into invisibility, and you can also just put it in the middle of your combos to have some overlapping damage because it does actually hurt people. Oni Shadow is an honorable mention here. If somebody wanted to use it, I wouldn't fault them for it. Essentially what it does is gives you a 15-second period of time where every skill that you use in iframe, it puts you back into invisibility. So you can basically chain invisibility in between your skills at the cost of stamina, which can be powerful in larger fights, RBF, or open world PvP, especially if you're outnumbered. I don't find it necessary, but if you're looking for a little bit more of a cheese in your playstyle, you could totally use the skill. but I've chosen Sinew Cut, you know, from 9 out of 10 situations. For your level 57 rebomb, you have Heart Snatch or Assassin's Trail. I'm not going to go into much detail here. If you read the skills, I'm sure you'll come to the conclusion. Heart Snatch is just like strictly better in my opinion, and there's not really a situation that you'd use the other skill here. Currently, I'm in PvP spec for this video. It's pretty straightforward. Your level 58 rebomb, you use Ankle Splitter. Your level 58 rebomb for PvP, you use Shackle Target. So Ankle Splitters has a minus DP debuff on it, and it's an unprotected skill. And your Shackle Target is a protected skill that has a slow on it. So, you know, I picked the protected skill for PvE. Seems pretty straightforward. It's just kind of some filler damage you can tag somebody with. So off the rebombs, next you can see my buffs, you know, directly under my HP bar, because you want to keep track of your runes. Kuno, similarly to some classes, has a unique system that allows her to collect 3 runes that are procced from a total of 6 skills. So there are 2 skills that give the same rune for a total of 6 skills that give the runes. And once you have all 3 runes, you can use them to use a release on your Wheel of Wrath, which will increase its damage substantially. It's very powerful to keep track of your runes and to set up your runes and your combos so that you can do significantly more damage in those situations. And you can see here, as you use the skills, the first 3 skills in the set are the shadow variety of skills. So you have Shadow Stomp, into Clone, into Explosion will give you all 3. And you can see that as I use Wheel of Wrath, the runes disappear and it is absorbed. The other 3 runes that you can acquire are for Tendon Cutter, Fox Claw, and Block Jump, which will give you the other 3 runes. And these are the same 3 runes. So you see here, I use a Wheel of Wrath and they go away. You also have Dance Macabre. That skill will also have a rune release on it, but it's not as strong as Wheel of Wrath, so I suggest that you use Wheel of Wrath. I have my skill cooldowns also. You can see down here, whenever I use a skill, I have a full Edit UI skill window. Remember my skill cooldowns here. And this is just if I'm really trying to keep track of certain skills that I don't think are important enough to be on my bar. It's really more for testing purposes than anything else. Like if I want to make sure every single skill is off cooldown before I start a combo, that's usually where I check. Or if I need to make sure certain skills off. And most of the time it's hard aiming that I'm really looking for. And next would be skills to use for SP grinding on this class. Touch briefly starting here. So you have in your main tree for Succession, I'd say skip all this stuff until you get to Fox Claw. Fox Claw is probably like the first skill that you're going to want to use. Going down, Shadow Stomp, you're definitely going to want to have that. Clone is probably fine. Should be doing decent fast damage for you, so go ahead and get Clone too. Prime Flash Slash, you know, is going to be good, or whichever Flash Slash you can get. And then Moonlight is worth getting. Shadow Explosion is pretty bad before you have Prime, so this is one of the skills you might want to skip, but it still will do damage. Tendon Cutter is great, movement, skill, and damage. And then, of course, pick up your 3 Prime skills, your E-Buff, and your 2 Awakening Tide skills as well. In the secondary skill tree, you really don't need anything except for Target Chase and Ghost Step. Target Chase is your class passive buff that allows you to get your sprint speed 20% for 20 seconds, and it has no stamina consumption at all. And it has a 100% uptime with a 20-second cooldown. Ghost Step is your iframe, pretty straightforward. Passives, that's preference. You don't need any of these, but if any of them would make your grind more convenient, then go ahead and pick them. Alright, so if you need a more in-depth SP guide, you can reference the Kuno Discord, and if you're not in there, you know, check it out. If you want, you know, like a down and dirty, okay, I've got like 1100 skill points on my seasonal Kuno. What skills do I need to grind polys until I have like 1700 to 1900, which is enough to actually PvP? Something like that would be my recommendation, just picking up those skills. And then lastly, I'm going to touch on skill add-ons. I'm just going to give them to you so you have them as a reference. I'll go more in depth in my explanations in later videos, specifically targeted for PvE and PvP. But for right now, you can use these, or you can check out the ones they have in the Kuno Discord, which are going to be great for your beginning stuff. So I'm going to head over to the skill manager here. So you can see these are for PvP. And these are for PvE. One last thing to notice, when I change between my PvE and PvP spec, you'll notice that Shackle target has become ankle splitter. I use this in the same rebomb like I was talking about earlier. Depending on whether or not I'm in PvE or PvP, that skill will change. So make sure you don't forget that whenever you're setting up your PvP and your PvE. Okay, and that's it for the video. If you guys have any questions, leave it in the comments. I read all the comments, and you can find me on Twitch at Sadie Shiro, same as YouTube, and I'll catch you in the next video.